And a good Combine Monday morning. Birds fans, appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365 to the Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen, Jody McDonald. John, I got to thank A.J. Brown because not only did he give us food for thought today, but he actually waited till Friday afternoon to put in a call to WIP. He didn't do so to Gilio and to you, Douglas, at like 10:10, like immediately after Birds 365 signed off on Friday. He did wait until Friday afternoon to check in with Ike and Jack Fred. So thanks for waiting and not making us feel bad like oftentimes happens here on Birds 365. Stuff gets announced at 9:55 a.m.
Well, speaking of the coaching staff, that was announced
right
basically
on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as the show's over, done. So AJ at least waited. He didn't like stick a knife in us. He did the damage that he did, but he didn't do it immediately after we didn't have a chance to talk about it. You want to talk about the coaching staff first, or you want to talk about AJ Brown?
Up to you, brother. We got to talk about both. So
Yeah, we do.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to me.
With the fact that we knew most of the coaching staff ahead of time, and we'll talk about the guys that will be filling in, we're sticking around. There's some interesting aspects to it, but I think AJ Brown is certainly a bigger story. First things first, I tip my hat to AJ Brown because I just love when players take it on their own initiative to clear the air or attempt to clear the air. He surely wasn't obligated to jump on WIP. He was not asked to come on WIP. He called of his own volition into WIP to, as I just stated, clear the air. So first things first, you got to give the guy a lot of credit because players just don't do that. They have the opportunity to do that. What is WIP going to say? No, thanks. We got to talk to Pete from the Northeast. No, of course they're going to take AJ's call and give him as much time as he wants to say what he wants. It's good for them. It's good for AJ to be able to get his side of the story out there. So first things first, got to give him a ton of credit just for doing it. More power to him. And here's one thing I did a show yesterday on WIP that maybe I need to explain to listeners. There are some things that AJ Brown said that I disagree with. I can give him all the credit in the world for calling in and saying, AJ, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good on you. But that doesn't mean that you then, because you appreciate the fact that he just did call in and gave his side of the story, then you have to agree with everything he said. There were some things he said with that I learned from, some things that he said with that didn't surprise me at all. And I thought that was the case. And there were other things that he said that I just flat out don't agree with. And we took call thereafter. How can you say he's great for calling in and then disagree with him? Because I do. It's pretty simple. I don't see the tie between appreciate him calling in and then having to agree with everything he said. I know you've heard all the clips by now, read all the clips by now. What did you think of what AJ Brown had to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the opposite. I wish AJ would ignore that kind of stuff. But he's very sensitive to, and I get it. I mean, when people are taking shots at you and saying things at you and making up rumors about you, and you want to respond. But I from his standpoint of where he is, I think it would be better. And he has at times gotten off social media, and people look into that, no matter what. So, he said pretty consistently over the years that he feels misunderstood, which is something he again expressed on WIP when he called in. The TO nonsense, those comps, those are so off base. But there's nothing he can say. There's a long history of diva wide receivers in the NFL. So that's immediately where people go when they see anything about it. Doesn't have to be AJ Brown. It could be anybody and any good receiver and that's immediately what you hear. If they complain, if they say something, he's a diva. Sometimes it's true. Sometimes it's not true. In the case of AJ, it's not true, but what is banging your head against a wall? What does it really do? Maybe it made him feel a little bit better, but ultimately, I think, there's a difference, and I wrote about this on SI yesterday. There's And I saw it. I popped on here this morning talking to you and Xander before we get on the air. One of the top comments, Billy Media, Billy Media, Billy Media. Like it's one giant thing. I don't get it, Jody. I don't get it. I don't even know who at WIP, to be honest, you may know, started the trade rumor. But I know it wasn't a report. It was basically just a way to generate calls, and they didn't look at it.
It was a poll question.
It was a
Let's see
poll
how many
question. All right.
responses we can get on a
Yeah.
poll question
Yeah.
on the afternoon show with Ike and Jack, and it might have been the day that Spike did a flyby, but it was that's where it came from, was a poll question
Yeah.
on
And
the
then
afternoon show on WIP.
and then aggregators pick it up and run with it, and it becomes this thing. You saw nobody who's in that locker room report that the Eagles were even considering trading one. It's not very feasible. You can't say anything. The Eagles have proven with Carson Wentz, anything is possible when you talk about eating money and things of that nature, but it's very unlikely, not to mention the fact he's the best pure football player they have.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that, oh, by the way, they don't think he's a problem. Not to mention all these things. So it fuels from there. And again, it's weird because the people that see AJ 4 times a week, up to 4 times a week during the season, I think he trusts. I think he sees the same faces. He talks to us. He's never, when he does talk, he has never refused to answer a question. In fact, he's the opposite. He goes above and beyond when the TV cameras scurry to the next scrum. He's willing to talk off the record. He's willing to talk about anything. He's a team captain. He's not a team captain because Nick Sirianni named him a team captain. He was voted by his teammates a team captain. He's well liked in the locker room.
Yeah, but can I interject for a second?
Sure.
He's team captain and he's a leader, and he talked about his emotion. That's what's fueling him on the sidelines when we see him yelling and screaming at guys. It's just him taking his role as a team captain and a motivator seriously. Then you can't not talk after games. You can't say, well, I really didn't want to talk because I might have said something that got me and the team in hot water, and I decided to just remove myself from the situation. Team captains don't do that, John. Team captains have to
no,
be there
there's
to talk to the media after the
you're
game.
right. And AJ speaks after every game, and then he had the issue. Look, in the past, and he's admitted in Tennessee, and we're going to have Mike Sealski on. Mike wrote a great column about it a while ago, not recently, but he's admitted to some mental health issues. And that's why I say if I were giving advice to AJ, not that he wants it, but I would encourage him to stay away from social media because it affects some people differently than others. And I think it affects him greatly. And it affected him greatly at that point of time. And he stopped talking for a very small portion. And then he came back and apologized and did all that stuff and said, it's not you guys, blah, blah, blah. But then he's back out there saying Philly media, and he's playing into it. And there's so many fans. Like I said, I pop on here, Philly media. And you know what? At some point, maybe it comes a self-fulfilling prophecy because, you want to push the issue and he gets so upset. Maybe he does want out of Philadelphia, but it won't be the people who cover him on a daily basis. I guarantee you that. So that's my frustration part of it. The fact that AJ plays into, look, you got to realize, and I got to straddle the fence, and a lot of people have to straddle the fence. Mike is another one. Mike Sealski is another one. Columnist, reporter. We do both. We talk, we give our opinions. And, sometimes I beat myself up for not saying this is my opinion versus this is information, because people take both and run with it, and they go where they want to go with it. That I can't control that, though. I can't control that. I can only do the best I can do. But you got to know the difference. You got to know the difference between hypotheticals. You're a big hypothetical guy. We talk about hypotheticals. That's what we do. That's fine. But there's a big difference between that and actual information and reporting. And then there's people saying he's a bad locker room guy. Who in the locker room? Who was in the locker room has said that? Point me to
Right.
one guy, and I will say
Attach a reporter's name to that,
yes,
please.
yes. Point me, because I know them all. I know the reporters that are in there. I haven't heard it from one. I may have missed it, but I haven't heard it from one. So, I mean, take it with a grain of salt.
I appreciated the fact that AJ did come out and talk. I did question the fact that he wants to be late, wants to be emotional, he wants to call guys on the carpet, he wants to maybe even pick up his buddy Jalen Hurts, who is not that type of an individual. And if somebody's got to do it, might as well be me. But then you can't not talk after the game. So that was one thing I disagreed with him. Another thing you kind of touched on, the Philly media. Now, I'm in a unique position in that I do Birds 365 here every day with you. So I'm a Philly commentator. I do a regular Philadelphia sports show on WIP 3 times a week. And I'm also a national reporter. And I do a CBS sports radio show on both Saturdays and Sundays. So I wear a lot of different hats. AJ, like some of our streamers here, like to just throw one hat that fits all and covers everybody. And it's just not true. It's just not accurate. Over the last week, I guarantee you, and you haven't talked to AJ, I haven't talked to AJ, we're just reading between the lines some of the things he said here on WIP, but I'd bet good money that he got ticked off at Craig Carton and Kay Adams, both of which are national Eagles reporters, football reporters. They're not the Philadelphia media. They're not. Craig was at one point. He's not anymore. Kay Adams never has been. She picked up on the WIP polls and then turns around and asks AJ, what do you think about the rumor out of Philadelphia? It wasn't a rumor. It was a poll question about what the Eagles think about trading him for a Denver cornerback. And he holds the Philly media up to blame for that. No, it was national people who did it. AJ, you got to be able to differentiate those two things.
Yeah, media literacy, and that's how I started my column. Media literacy is a big problem in this country, and it's got sports are a little part. Sports are a meaningless part of it, but it's still real. Media literacy is a big problem in this country, and people not being able to differentiate between the Craig Cartons of the world, the KS. Now, I think he was upset. Spike said something. I don't even know what Spike said. That's why I called that particular show, and Spike wasn't even on, and it ended up being Ike Reese, doing his best to explain the difference, and I think Ike did a good job, by the way. I don't know what Spike said, to be honest, but he was upset with part of the Philadelphia media, I guess. But yeah, mainly it was Craig Carton, and Kay brought up like it was a real rumor, and it was a poll, as you mentioned. I don't, and it's, look, not everybody, and I don't even know, because it's none of my business, and I don't care, to be honest, what Spike said. But he said something. I don't know what he said, but that's what AJ, excuse me, talking about EJ Smith. AJ called in because of something Spike said. I don't even know what it was. So, but again, and Spike's very good at what he does, but he's not in the locker room. He's not a reporter, and he's just giving his opinion. That's you got to know the difference between that.
Right. And let me just close out our first segment. Jeff Kerr is going to join us, and then we have Mike Sealski a little later on, because this one hits home for me. One of the things he said, and again, he said it to Ike and Jack on Friday, and he said it about the Philadelphia media. And again, only AJ knows who he was describing at that time, but he used an all-inclusive term. He said, you're supposed to be supporting and rooting for the team. I know you feel the same way as I do here. No, my check comes from JAKIB Media. My check comes from Odyssey on both the WIP and the CBS. No, I am paid by outlets other than the Philadelphia Eagles. I am not on the Eagles payroll. I do not wave the Eagle pom-poms. That is not my job. It's not John's job. and AJ did verbalize it. You're supposed to be supporting and rooting the Eagles. AJ, no, we're not. Sometimes we do support the Eagles. Sometimes we root for the Eagles. If you guys play that well, we give you all the props and all the credit in the world. But it is not our job or responsibility to root for and or support the Philadelphia Eagles. That is not what we're paid to do. That I don't look at it as my responsibility. And the fact that athletes can't pick up on that we're not on the team payroll. There are some individuals.
Well, a lot of fans can't pick up on it either. We just got, I explained the situation. We got one guy. I followed Philly media for decades, and you guys are like no other media outlet. What the freak are you? I don't have, now Jody works for WIP, but even with Jody working with WIP, and I work for JAKIB Media here, I work for Sports Illustrated. I'm not responsible for other people. I'm not responsible for what Jody McDonald says, for instance. And Jody's not responsible.
You can challenge me, and I will challenge you, but you're not responsible for it. No, you're absolutely right.
And Jody, anybody else who's on WIP with Jody, that doesn't mean Jody thinks the same way you. How is it possible to not understand that? How is it literally possible? It baffles me, Jody. And that's even, you talk about the pet peeve of so many people think, and there are fans now that cover their particular team. That's not the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be as objective as possible. And that's what I strive for. That's what a number of reporters strive for. Are we always successful? No, nobody's always successful. But you can tell, it's real easy to tell who the objective people are if you're looking for them, if you want them. If you want cheerleaders, you can find them. If you want trolls, you can find them. If you want grifters, you can find them. But if you really want objective people, it's easy to find. Easy.
Well, it's not as easy as it used to be. I think there are more trolls and more cheerleaders than there used to be, but there's still objective people that are still out there, and you and I both strive to do just that. And here's the bottom line, and then we'll get our first time out and we'll punch up Jeff Kerr. Of everything that was said, from the time they announced that AJ Brown is on our telephone lines, and everything that AJ said, there's a lot that you can read through the lines and take at face value and everything. Here's the most important thing, Eagle fans, and I really did believe this, and I listened to the audio a couple times over. AJ Brown wants to be here. Some people, not necessarily John and I, but I at least posited the thought that it could be the case that AJ Brown wasn't happy here, that he really did get annoyed when he didn't get his targets, which he said is not the case. Okay, AJ, I'm going to take you your word here that it's just you're frustrated by the team and not getting a job done, and that's you and that's your personality and you're just trying to lead. Okay, I'll accept all of that at face value. If you say that's the case, I believe you. And when he says, I want to be here, I believe that. I believe that he's telling us the truth there. And some people put two and two together, came up with four. AJ Brown doesn't want to be here. He's not happy because he doesn't get the ball enough. AJ Brown, if he doesn't want to be here, he shouldn't be here. The Eagles should trade him. That's drawing conclusions, which was an overstatement and overreach, probably foolish. That's the most important thing. Of all the things that came out about AJ Brown, what he said the other day and how he handles himself and everything, he wants to be here. That's a good thing. He doesn't want to get out of town. He doesn't want to be traded. He doesn't want to have a separation with his buddy, Jalen. That's the most important thing. Of everything that was said, A.J. Brown wants to be here, and the Eagles need to keep him because, as John said, I've said, he's their best football player. If you're just talking about best football player on the entire 53-man roster, who's their best football player, putting the positionals aside, he's their best player. And your best player wants to stay here in Philadelphia. That's a very good thing. And everything else is important, but not as important as that. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. You got Mac here on Birds 365. If you think that we're being as objective as we can today or not, Feel free to hit the like button one way or the other. If you think we're giving you a down the middle type point of view, feel free to go ahead and hit the like button. We like getting Jeff Kerr on from CBSSports.com. He's scheduled to join us next here on Birds 365.